Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla and I like to talk about books, reading vlogs, book reviews, stuff like that. So if any of that interests you, then please subscribe. But today I'm going to be doing just a regular old book review on the book Everyone Here is Lying. Everyone Here is Lying by Shari Lapena. I don't fully know how to say her name, but I hope I'm saying it right. This book is a relatively new release, so I'm going to do my regular format where I'll start with a summary synopsis and then I will get into the review and kind of like my thoughts on the story. But I'm going to try and keep it spoiler free because obviously, like I said, it's a new release. So don't worry, I will not be giving away any of the ending or any spoilers. I will be giving my kind of thoughts just like vaguely on the book. So I'm not going to zone in too much on anything specific, especially like I said from the end. But I will be talking about just my thoughts on the book. So yeah. Let's just go ahead and get started with a little bit of a synopsis. This book starts with Nora and William as kind of our main characters. We're introduced to the world via Nora and William are having an affair. Until one day when Nora kind of has had enough and she finally has enough guilt and breaks it off. William heads home after Nora breaks it off with him to find his troubled daughter Avery has been sent home from choir practice early. Now, when we're talking about troubled daughter, we are talking about a 9-year-old girl, so she's really young, and they get into a fight because she was sent home for misbehaving, and obviously he's already not in a very good mood, and he ends up striking her, and it was a lot harder than he even like kind of initially thought it was going to be. Not that it's really ever okay, but it was definitely a lot harder and it started leaving a welt, and he ends up leaving the house to go for like a drive, and then when he returns back again, it is to be confronted by police because his daughter is officially missing. So obviously right off the bat we've got these circumstances that are super suspicious with how she went missing right after a fight with him. Motive, obviously he's also shown that he can be a little bit more violent, I guess. He's prone to like hitting her, which is not great. So this is like the real start of the story and the whole plot and looking into Avery's disappearance and all of the different people in their small community who could be involved, who are presumed to be involved. And this includes all of these interpersonal dynamics as well, stemming from William and Nora's affair, obviously, and the subsequent discovery of said affair throughout this investigation, as well as that affair in the context of their missing daughter. Here you've got his missing daughter, and he has some motive, sort of, and her family ends up getting a little bit involved as well, and other families on their street. So it's really interesting. There are a lot of like tips called in and accusations and all of these interesting things. Like I said, I'm going to keep it spoiler free, so I'm not going to really deeply get into it, but pretty early on fingers are obviously pointed at William. Fingers are also pointed at Nora's son as well, and there is also a finger pointed at another boy in the neighborhood. And I forget to tell that this is early on as well, that Avery had talked to her little friend about how she had like a boyfriend that she did adult things with. So then of course on top of all of this other stuff, the investigators there's like two main investigators, and they're like, okay, it sounds like maybe somebody was like grooming her, or there was like some essay or something happening with this little girl as well. So there's just like a lot to unpack, and it's a great premise, and I feel like the lead up is really good. Yeah, so all of these other neighbors on their street come into play, and we end up just getting pulled back and forth and wondering who might be involved, where Avery is, like what's happened to her, all these different things. It's just a great start to the story. So I'm going to get right into the review and some of my thoughts. I'm going to start off by saying that I did not particularly like vibe with this book. It's not that I really hated it or thought it was so bad. It just kind of missed the mark for me. It felt like it had a lot of potential and then ended up falling a little flat for me personally. I'm guessing that there are probably a lot of people who enjoyed and loved the the like second half of this book. But yeah, there were just definitely almost really clear-cut points in the book where I could tell that I liked it a little bit less after certain things happened, certain reveals. But I'm gonna start off with just some of the things that I really did like and thought were great. Always, of course, the multiple character viewpoints from so many different characters. In this book, it's from like basically everybody, which I really, really liked. I liked having a little snippet of being inside every single person's brain. And obviously there are a lot of nefarious thoughts rolling around in people's heads, especially in the wake of this affair and everything. So I really, really liked that. I felt like it kept me interested as a reader basically the entire book. Even when I wasn't like loving the direction it was going, it still kept me interested as a reader because it was switching those viewpoints super, super frequently through tons and tons of characters. So it really did allow you a bunch of different dynamics. However, in that same vein, I didn't necessarily think that each character had a super individualized voice. So it wasn't that you were really getting to know that character that well, it was just that point of view. So I mean, there's that. But I thought it kept me really interested. The premise itself was also incredibly engaging. Nothing like crazy far-fetched or anything, which I liked. It was just a very straightforward, realistic, tangible premise. Like, there's an affair, it's broken off, a little girl goes missing, bam, like that's all you need to have a super engaging start to a story. And then there are like a few people involved who have some motive to take this little girl. Just great, right off the bat, interesting to read. I grew up in like kind of a little town where I feel like something like this would totally happen. That sounds weird to say, but we had like a few scandals, I remember, that shook the town, and this just seems like one of those things. And I just can exactly imagine that. So this particular storyline and community felt very like I could feel it almost, and so I liked that a lot. It just felt incredibly real to me. For me, this is where a lot of what I loved about it ends. The premise had so much promise, it kind of fell flat and just didn't fulfill that promise for me. It didn't live up to my expectations. I guess I'll say this. I think that the story decided to go in a direction of more surprise rather than what might have been like made more sense or even just been more interesting or fit with the story. So while it started off feeling so like tangible, as it went more towards the direction of like surprise instead of realism, I guess it felt just like it just shifted the tone of the story a lot for me. It wasn't necessarily bad. I'm guessing a lot of people probably liked that, but I didn't. So it just wasn't my favorite. It changed the vibe of the story a lot. It changed the direction it felt like it was going so much. So it really turned it into a different kind of like mystery book, a different kind of crime, true crime. I don't know. Like it changed the direction and the vibe of the book a lot. For me, I don't always necessarily care about it being like the biggest surprise factor. Sometimes that's great, but it just also felt a little bit like a cheap way out to like, I don't know, maybe you'll understand if you've read it, but it felt like a little bit of a cheap out in a lot of ways. I didn't love that. Additionally, I felt that my sympathy for both Nora and William was essentially non-existent, so it made it really hard for me to feel for those characters. I guess, could sympathize with Nora, but even then, it felt like they were both always really looking for excuses for all of their low-key, like, inexcusable actions. They were always looking for excuses, and even when Nora would say something about, like, deserving this or that because of, like, their affair, I don't know, it just felt disingenuous from her. Like, she definitely was looking for negative things in her husband. Like, there were all these comments after the affair came out and everything where she was like, my husband is, like, acting so different, yada yada, like, I can't believe this. And I'm like, of course he is. Like, his feelings are hurt. He found out something that would absolutely make him act differently and make him act meaner towards you. And I didn't really sympathize with her that much, to be totally honest. Like, not saying that I think, like, it's the worst thing in the world, but I don't know. I'm not saying he was like a great guy either. There were just a lot of times where I feel like they like expected sympathy from me as characters or something. I don't even know how to explain it, but they definitely did not get it. These were not characters that I was like, wow, like they just weren't it for me. And even like William's wife, she was kind of cool, honestly. If anything, I was like, something that I enjoyed was that she was really tenacious in trying to find out what happened with Avery. So I felt like a lot of the characters who we were introduced to the story through were characters who, for me personally, didn't really have any sympathy in, and was like, okay, I don't like you, you feel entitled. I don't know. I didn't really like them. And I guess it's kind of in the title there, everyone here is lying, which is like a little bit true, I guess. I will say that definitely maybe the title of this book could have been everyone here is like bad. No, I don't know. I just didn't sympathize with these characters a lot. And because I didn't love the turn of the story itself as well, in the end, I felt a little bit like I was left without characters that I felt for, and also without a story that I felt for. And usually I can make it through and enjoy a book if I have one of those things. And I did make it through and it was fine. But it didn't end with either of those things for me, so it really ended on a note that I just didn't care about. It just didn't have a strong character drive, it didn't have a strong story drive, so I just don't know what it was there to offer, what it had to offer for me. I guess that's my takeaway. I just didn't think it was great. I really liked the premise, but it felt like such unfulfilled potential, so it felt a little bit flat for me. Like it just didn't quite deliver on the story front or on the character front. It just wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't my vibe. So I don't know. Let me know below if you've read this. I know it's a pretty new release. If you've read this, what your thoughts were. Do you agree? Disagree? I'm guessing like a lot of people like it because it did have, like I said, like great premise and all of that. But that is going to be it for me for this summary review. I don't have like the most insight. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you for my next review, which is going to be probably next week. So